Shooting from the Lip features views and opinions from smart, funny, serious, and not so serious people. This show is intended for a mature and not so mature audience. Enjoy the show!
What is up, people? Shooting from the Lip live on this Friday night, tax day, tax night, April 15th, 2016. Talking some ufology. Got a co-host with me tonight who's got some UFO experience, UFO intuition, UFO game. Tiffany Mac. Tiffany, what's up?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you this evening?
I'm lovely. I'm doing very well.
Great.
Welcome to Shooting from the Lip. This is your debut. How's it feel?
It is my debut for this evening. Hopefully it will last a while.
Yeah. We both call Louisville, Kentucky. I say Louisville. Home, right?
Louisville.
Before we get to know your business, let me plug the show. You can find the show on the SoundCloud app, or go to blogtalkradio.com/shootingfromthelip, Twitter @theshootinglip, my Twitter @KevinHale423. You can like us, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Shooting from the Lip. Again, we're live tonight via Blog Talk Radio with my lovely co-host, Tiffany Mac. Tiffany, give us the 411 with you.
It's been a very entertaining week, to say the least. We've just encountered the Ozark UFO conference, and that is in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and it was an amazing event. We had amazing people such as Linda Moulton Howe, John Burroughs. We had Richard Dolan, Micah Hanks, Eric Von Daniken, the man, the mystery, and we've had some amazing other guests as well as, Barbara Lamb, and Nick Pope. And there were some amazing people here at this conference, and it was the 29th event, 29th year running, and I hope to God that I'm able to see it next year. But it was amazing. It really, really was. It was my first UFO conference, and it was an eye-opening event that was very, it was, not only was it interesting, it was educational. It really amazed me how much work that was put into this event. All of these people really brought their game, and I was moved to tears at some point, especially during Linda Moulton Howe's her presentation. I really had some amazing moments where I almost had to leave. It was very surreal the way that she had brought a video of some regressions from her documentary, and it was emotional. I really did enjoy this whole event, so it was amazing.
We're gonna, this being our first show, because Shooting from the Lip spares no expense, I went out and got some heavy hitters for tonight. Amen. We got some Mutual UFO Network guys. Let me bring on my buddy Jeremy Ray, who has been on the show before. Jeremy, what's up?
How you doing tonight, Kevin?
Good. You're calling out of the Rockies, the Rocky Mountains.
Yep, Denver, Colorado. And I think they said it's going to snow tonight.
What?
I know, it's crazy.
It was 80 degrees here in Louisville today.
I know, it was.
Let us just rub that in for a moment.
Yeah.
Just experience that 80 degrees.
Yeah, while we were getting some Jeremy Rays today, Jeremy was planning on making a snow angel tonight.
Well, I think I'm going to stay inside warm and coasty.
There
they say
you
it's
go.
going to rain, possibly rain and snow, but they're definitely going to snow tomorrow. It says.
Oh, wow, good Lord.
It's about 31 degrees outside right now.
Ugh. Alongside Jeremy tonight, we've got Ben Moss and Tony Angiola from the Virginia area. Let's start with Ben. It'd be easy to talk over each other. But Ben, what's up?
Not much, man. Having a good time. Glad to be on the show and looking forward to talking about all things UFO.
Exactly. Tony, what's up, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing good. I'll start with Jeremy. Jeremy, were you familiar with the conference that Tiffany mentioned?
Yeah, I believe that's not the first conference. Don't they do that yearly, Tiffany?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was the 29th year this year. Yeah, and we actually had some big MUFON characters there. And Steve Hudgens was there, and it was amazing to meet him. He's a pretty funny character.
Yeah, I've met Steve briefly at the MUFON conference.
I think I terrified him
last year.
Yeah, I think I did.
How'd you scare Steve Hudgens?
Please tell. How did you scare him, Tiffany?
Well, I have a pretty big personality, and I have a little bitty body, and I think that people just expect me to come in very quietly. I think I shocked him a little bit. I didn't really say anything in particular, but his eyes were very large when he saw me, and that's all I can say is either I was downright ugly or I just sort of shocked him with what I said. So.
Or you were downright not ugly.
His wife was there. She's really, really cute. So.
Just saying. Tony, are you familiar with the conference that Tiffany was talking about?
I've never been to that one. I wanted to go, but we went to the one in Arizona just recently.
Mm-hmm.
Which one was that?
Conference. International UFO Conference.
Oh, yeah.
Rojas. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A couple thousand people.
Wow.
Oh, that's a lot more
pretty
than what we had. Yeah, absolutely. That was huge.
I think it's the largest of its kind.
The world's largest UFO conference, definitely. It's a beautiful setting, too.
Throw that in your face, Tiffany.
I know it, thank you. But do they have a lot of people that wear the silver or the aluminum foil hats?
Yeah, they had all
That's
kinds
what I want to know.
Those are the ones at Fox.
Yeah, Fox 5 showed up, and we're thinking, oh, this will be great. Get some great publicity. But everyone interviewed had an aluminum hat on or some crazy outfit.
Oh, geez Louise.
Yeah, I was thinking, man, this is how things get misrepresented. They just want to go after the radicals.
Yeah, that's the problem with these events. I mean, I like I said, this is my first one. I've really only been involved in MUFON for about maybe 9 months to a year, but my experiences are legit, and I'm telling you, I don't have any faith. It really does. It's still very strange to me, this whole environment, and the people that really have like the Star Trek mentality, they're not doing us any justice.
Mm. Jeremy, let's start with some bios. Give us your info.
Been with MUFON I was counting the years yesterday. I can't believe it's been 10 years, but I joined in 2006, so it just seems like yesterday. But learned a lot, done about 100 cases. Some of them have been very interesting. Back in 2008, I was a part of the SIP project, and that was when Mr. Bigelow helped fund some UFO investigations for about a year. And that was pretty cool being a part of that. And been on the STAR team ever since. Then later on, don't remember, seems like yesterday too, the show started, Hangar 1, the UFO Files. And I was there for the pilot and did season 1. And then in season 2, that's where I got to meet Ben and Tony. And great guys. Anyway, we've been friends ever since. And that's about all I'll add. Ben and Tony and was in season 2.
So what was your initiation into MUFON? What was the reason that you became a participant?
Well, when I was 16, I had my own personal sighting. And then after that, I was always interested in UFOs, reading books, as much literature as I could get my hands on. And then I had another sighting when I was in the service. And I think that was a turning point where I decided, I'd like to get more involved in this field.
What was your sighting like?
Mine was about 100 feet off the ground. It was March 20th, 1996. I was walking through the neighborhood, and there was an object hovering above the neighborhood, and then I rang the doorbells and got the neighbors out, and hung around for about 15 minutes, and then it took off, and basically changed my life, because I didn't believe in UFOs or any of that stuff until I actually saw one. And then I had another sighting, of course, when I was in the Army, and I just figured, you know what, there's something to this, and I wanted to learn as much as I could about the phenomenon. And when I was in college, I joined MUFON. And when I was living up in Sacramento, California, and the state director there, still the state director today, is Ruben York, and he personally trained me and taught me how to be an investigator. And then, of course, I've been an investigator in Texas. And Steve Hudgens back then was the state director. Right now, he is the chief of investigation, so he's moved up the ladder. And then now I'm in Denver, so I've done cases in California, Texas, and Denver. And there's a lot of people in MUFON. We've got, in every state, we have a state director, and we have an investigating team. So no matter where, you can move anywhere and still be active in the field in MUFON. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay, I really do appreciate the fact that you were in our military system. I actually started out, I went to college, and I was in the journalism, broadcast journalism field. I worked for NPR, just to give you a little background. But from there, I actually went to Greece and worked for the Department of Defense as a contractor on a NATO base. So
wow.
It was very, very odd how I actually got into the field, but my grandfather was with the Strategic Air Command of the Air Force. And so from there, I really did have a I had a broad interest, right? But the military has always been very close and dear to my heart. Now, we have a lot of interest when it comes to the military, but you're saying that you only had 2 experiences. You were within the military. You had a little bit of an interest. Did you ever have anybody within your community that said, hey, look up at the sky. Did you see anything weird tonight, or did you see anything weird the other night? Have you had any kind of confirmation from anybody else that you worked with within the military?
No, but my friends have seen strange things. None of my Army buddies, most of my friends in the military that I still keep in touch with are not interested in UFOs. Now I am, and they would watch Hangar 1, and they would basically watch it because I was on it. But I don't think any of my friends in the service have seen a UFO, except
that's why I watched it. That's why I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that one night, me and Sergeant Guzman had a sighting late at night, and we had to wake up our lieutenant. He checked it out and told us to radio it to the battalion commander. So it was just a report. It just was. It wasn't that spectacular like the one I had when I was 16, but it was strange enough for us to report it. And I've also I've seen other things, but I spent a lot of time looking up, and I think most people don't spend 5 minutes out of their day looking up. They're looking at their iPhones, and I spent a lot of time looking up, and I've seen more strange stuff that I couldn't explain, but.
Cool.
When you say that, what exactly do you mean? You see a lot of things that you can't explain. What do you mean?
Oh, well, there's satellites and all kinds of stuff. But I've driven down the road in Texas and was staring at a star, and I watched it change direction and take off. So I was like, wow, real fast, something like that. Nothing, So I don't know how many weird sightings I've had, but there's a lot. But I used to go out and sky watch with Dr. Joseph Burks, who was period of time he was assistant state director up in Northern California, and we would sit with a bunch of sky watchers in areas, like Palm Springs, California. There's a lot of sightings down there, And most of the time we'd see shooting stars, or we'd see a radiant flare. And then sometimes we would see something that would be pretty quick and we couldn't explain. But this is like sitting out for several hours. I mean, of course, you go see something, but we all try to. We actually learn from it. You know, if you don't know what you're looking at, you can identify airplane, satellite. There's a nice website called Heavens Above, and you can get on there and find out in your area what type of satellites are flying over and their intensity and brightness. And so usually we would have a printout sheet. And if someone said they saw something strange, you know, we would check the list and say, oh, that's Cosmos, you know, whatever the number is, and just go through the checklist. But most of the time it's just good conversation. But all through my life I've seen a lot of strange stuff. But like I said, I think most people don't look up and don't spend the time.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Let's see what Ben's up to. Ben, share with us the Ben Moss story.
Well, I was watching an old Walter Cronkite UFO special. You know, they used to have shows all the time on TV. I'm kind of dating myself. With my dad, and I got hooked watching this thing. They had some military footage from the time. And then I just started. I'm a big comic book guy. I've got comic books at home in plastic, but I would go to the store and look for every UFO magazine there was and pick them off the shelves and go home and just read them over and over. And if we'd had the internet back then, I probably would have not left my room. But that got me started, and then I joined MUFON in the 90s. I actually was the security for the 99 symposium in Crystal City. But been ramping it up. When Tony and I met, we started working together in Virginia. He's the assistant state director. I'm the chief field investigator for Virginia. And so we've tackled a lot of cases. We kind of brought us back up to speed. In Virginia, we were way behind on cases. We brought it up to about 90%. I'm on the STAR team like Jeremy is, but kind of newer to the STAR team, but done plenty of cases. Working on some new evidence in the Socorro case, which we're going to present at the MUFON Symposium in Orlando in August. So I've been working on that for about 2 years because we uncovered new data and some pretty interesting information about that case, which is definitely one of the strangest close encounters of the third kind. Been working with Ray Stanford, who is a friend of Dr. Hynek's and who's one of the few people still around that knew everybody, Phil Klass, Hynek, and all the people that were involved in ufology back in the 50s and 60s. So he was the original investigator on site in 1964, a couple of days after the Socorro incident, and that's a really fascinating case. So that's what I've been working on lately, along with, we were on season 2 of Hangar 1, and working on some TV developmental shows right now, and hopefully we'll show up on another network. Hangar 1 didn't get renewed, but it's not for lack of trying, and there are other networks that are interested, so hopefully we're going to show up soon on another network.
We're going to talk more in detail about the Hangar 1 thing. Let's hear from Tony. Tony, what's up with you?
Yeah, mirroring a lot of what Ben said, because we do a lot of cases together. I'm the assistant state director and also on the STAR team and also on Hangar 1 season 2. And also working with Ray Stanford in the Socorro case. So, yeah, a lot of what Ben said, I don't want to repeat all that, but I got started back in the 90s with MUFON and started building my UFO book library since then, and I don't have much more room for books now, so I'm starting to use Audible, which is actually pretty cool. So I can start do all my reading by listening, which is much more useful. Because I'm on the road way too much.
Let's jump in. Let's talk Hangar 1. For me, I was a huge fan of the Hangar 1 series, both seasons. I thought season 1 was very good. Season 2 was even better. From what I understand, ratings-wise, you guys did very well. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'll start with Jeremy here. The show that was on before you guys, Ancient Aliens, which has kind of been the quote-unquote, UFO show for history, you guys outperformed them as far as the ratings go, right?
Yeah, well, I think both seasons. I remember John Ventry was really up on watching the ratings, rise. But I think they didn't even make the top 40. We were in the top 10. But the way they do the ratings is not by how many viewers you get. It's more about the advertisement and what type of age group they're trying to influence. So what the advertisers wanted was to attract a younger audience. And Hangar One's audience ranged from mostly 30s and up. It was mostly the age group, so then they would know the car commercials and things like that. Mm-hmm. But the age group for teenagers and stuff was really low. I think Mickey Mouse Clubhouse had higher ratings than us, but they didn't have that many people. They didn't have that many people, so I think they had like 500.
How did you sleep at night knowing that you were losing to the Mickey Mouse Club?
I didn't pay attention to it.
Okay,
I knew we were having way more viewers. We had way more people. It was like 1.5 million every night, but it didn't matter. Right. It's the youth just not interested in watching a documentary series on the History Channel, and that's what they were shooting for. Now, H2 is gone, and that's where we spent most of our time on. We did when season 2 aired. It did air on the History Channel, and then of course the reruns went to H2. But now H2 is gone, and it's called Vice City or Vice something, Vice Channel. I haven't really checked that out, but
I have. It's like every show I see on there is some type of weed documentary. Weed is it really is. So,
it really is. The cannabis crowd.
Yeah. I'm like, what the? Anyways.
Cannabis or aliens? Which one are you more interested in?
I don't think, did they really have alien shows on Vice? Really? I didn't know.
Well, I think she's saying if we had the choice between weed or aliens, we'd pick aliens.
Right, yeah.
I'll
take aliens.
Ben, jump in. What's your take with
Stone Extraterrestrials is the next show.
Oh, that's wow.
E.T. Canada.
There's one more thing I was going to say was what's going on right now is the director that directed both shows. He signed a contract with MUFON, and right now there's plenty of networks out there I hear that are interested in renewing the show, but I don't think we're going to keep the name Hangar One. It'll be a different name, but it'll be a MUFON TV show. So that the fat lady hasn't sang yet on that, and then there's also
has the name Shooting from the Lip come up?
Only when I talk about, Kevin.
Okay, well, you know what? That's all that matters to me. If it comes out of your mouth, Jeremy, then I'm good. So.
But there's also Ben and Tony and I are I don't know, Ben, if you want to jump in about the other show, but there's more UFO shows coming out in the near future.
Well, go ahead. More UFOs as far as you guys are involved with, or in general?
Ben, you want to chime in about
Tommy? There's things in the works. We're just trying to maybe find a format for a really good show that uses science and is more relevant than, just trying to maybe work it from a more scientific side. And there's so many cases out there that if MUFON lands with another network, it'll be the same type of arrangement. They video cases, they reenact cases from our files, which we have about 80,000 and growing, but it's going to show up somewhere. I know there's a lot of interest. 1.5 million viewers is a lot on cable, and I think that the person that took over the History Channel wanted to go towards more traditional history programming, but, really UFOs are part of history. There is a tradition throughout time, all the way up through World War II of the Foo Fighters and things like that. So I would think that a show that's almost quadrupled in viewership over 1 year would be something that many networks would want.
Now, I'm gonna throw this at Tony. Are you guys buddies with the Ancient Alien show? And where I'm getting at the show. Well, what I'm getting at is that they've been a major player.
Giorgio Tsoukalos and Eric Von Däniken?
Those guys. Yeah, the show. But they've been a major player on history.
They actually called recently. and they were wanting to shoot something on Socorro, and they heard about the work Ben and I were doing, and they had already shot the footage and got a lot of it wrong, and so unfortunately, and then so we said, listen, if you really want to get this right, you need to talk to Ray. So they called and talked to Ray, and Ray was not interested because, for one, they already shot everything, so there was no, control over that. And the last thing he wants to do is have them get it wrong and then put his name or any credits like that on it as having it wrong. I mean, even Hangar 1 got it really wrong, and they had like a flamethrower, shooting at the officer that was portraying to be Lonnie Zamora. There was no flame, there was no smoke. It was a blue it was a flame, but it was a blue flame with no smoke. It was almost like ionized particles knifing into the ground. And what people reported as smoke on that case, not to be getting all into it right now, but it was actually dust being kicked up by Lonnie's tires. But I mean, there's so many details that we could go over on what people got wrong and what they got right and things like this. But basically, yeah, they called us and they wanted our input, and it was way too much after the fact. Yeah, they wanted our documents, they wanted all kinds of stuff, which, if they brought us in at the very beginning and we worked something out, because all we really care about is accuracy. We don't, we don't do this for the money, so.
There's no money.
And there's absolutely no money, just, the money that we spend.
Right, yeah, no, you're right.
Well, you're chasing a dream. You're chasing something that you have sincere interest in, and when it comes down to that, does it matter if you make any money? Most people don't make it money that they actually love doing.
If I could just pay my bills doing this, I'd be the happiest guy in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Amen, absolutely.
Or my internet usage, something, some kind of a perk.
Yeah.
If you get into the UFO business and become rich and famous, you're going to be poor and unknown.
Amen. I believe that 100%. You have to have a dream, and you have to dream big, and you have to really, really believe it. You have to believe it 100%.
No, wait a minute. The other alternative is, if you get in the UFO business, you can be on a podcast on a Friday night with, a few other people.
Yeah, let me know if you know anybody like that.
Yeah.
Jeremy, where's the love, Jeremy? Give me some love.
Oh, I love you, Kevin. I love you. Thank you for inviting me on. Is this my third time being on your show, or is this my second?
I think
it's my third time.
Yeah, you were on, and actually, I think Dwight is listening to this show right now. So.
Awesome. I'm Dwight. I know you're listening. I just want to send my love out to you too.
Dwight.
We love Dwight. Dwight is
Dwight's awesome. I met Dwight finally face to face. Me, Ben, and Tony. Even though he was on the show, we never was on the set with him, so we never got to meet Dwight until the MUFON Symposium, which was last year. And what a great guy! And I got to meet his wife, and I enjoyed his company. I wish I could have hung out a lot longer.
Yeah. He's a good guy.
It's a pretty short weekend, but good.
If we don't mind, Tiffany, I want to. You've had some experiences.
Oh, geez.
Would you be okay to share some of the things that you've, maybe not, to tell us at, however you want to tell us. But I'd be interested in hearing what the guys think of the experiences that you've had.
Oh, that's a great intro. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm a Catholic school girl. I'm a college educated girl. I worked for the Department of Defense in Greece. I worked for NATO, and I actually have had 2 children. And once I started, when I first had my first child, I really began having some crazy experiences. So I like to call them nighttime visitors. And the thing that I really wanted to sort of get into tonight, I don't know if we can do that tonight or not, but I'd like to talk about hypnagogic state and the idea of the alien experience, or, how it relates to that nighttime sort of terror phase. because it's something that I go through, and it's something that has really brought me a lot of drama. We'll just say drama. And, you know, I mean, I have a psychiatrist in the family. We've got a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses in my family. And when it comes down to having these experiences, a lot of people say you're either having sleep paralysis or your imagination has gone buck wild, right? I mean, do y'all hear that a lot?
Let's start, Tony. Jump in, Tony.
I mean, personally, I've had some sleep paralysis, but I'm not sure what that was. I have to think back and see what was I drinking or something that night. But I've heard of it. I've heard of it before, and I really don't know what it could possibly be. I mean, there's lots of different reasons, I'm sure.
For blue pills you take.
Yeah, right.
Well, okay, so let's bring this into it. Let's bring this into existence right here. Do you think that a lot of the alien abduction scenarios end up being explainable, or do you feel that they are actually something that is unexplainable, something that people just don't understand? Is it something like you are going into REM sleep and your body is frozen and you're absolutely seeing something horrific? Say you're a man, you have some crazy, beautiful, or wicked-looking woman on top of you. That is something that they call, like, an incubus, right? It could be an incubus.
Well, it depends.
It could be.
Is that a succubus? What's a succubus?
No. The succubus is the woman on top of the man. The incubus is the female on top of the, is that right? No, the incubus is the male on top of the woman. The female is the succubus on top of you. Right. Okay. Okay, we got it. So is it something that you all discussed this before, or is this?
Quite honestly, it's not my expertise. I don't deal with abductions at all. Really, we have people that are really trained in that area, but that's not me.
Uh-huh.
That's why
not you. Okay.
Was that Tony? Was that Tony?
Yes, Tony.
Yeah, Tony said it's not him.
Yeah. All right. We cleared Tony from succubus.
Tony doesn't want to answer. Yeah.
he says no comment. Jeremy,
like I said, you know what? If that happened to me, it would be real. I think I was in some kind of weird dream, and she'd have to be really hot succubus for me to not be scared. But it never happened to me before.
Okay. So this is not something that you all heard of very often, then, huh?
Well, no. Of course, Bud Hopkins. I mean, of course, everybody knows Bud Hopkins. Before he passed away, I attended about 3 or 4 of his seminars, and one thing that always sticks in my mind. I bought his books. I've also read the book by Jacob. I can't remember his last name. It's called The Threat, where he sees these abductions as not good, like they're building a hybrid race and all this kind of stuff. But one thing that I found really interesting is one of the cases that Bud Hopkins worked on that I don't hear anybody really talking about. He had a video footage, and I'd love to see this footage again, of a man that was claiming to be abducted all his life, and he actually caught it kind of on film. His kid was outside swinging, and he took the camcorder outside to film his kid, and in the video, you see this cigar-shaped object come out of the sky. This looked really good, and came right above the swing set where he was at. Then you see the camera come down towards the ground, and you see him calmly, not saying anything, but he walks inside and puts his camcorder on top of the fridge. Okay, now he has no memory of that event, and the only way he found out about it is he was looking for his camera, and he couldn't find it. And he noticed, hey, the kids must have got a hold of it, but they weren't tall enough to put it on the fridge, so he found that interesting. The battery was dead. He charged it and rewinded the footage and couldn't believe what he caught, and he had no memory of that. Mm-hmm. So what Bud Hopkins was trying to say was that these visitors, or whoever they are, been abducting him through his whole life, that there was some kind of switch that they could turn on in his mind to tell him to go put the camera up, because Bud Hawkins believed, since he had missing time and doesn't have no memory of that event, that he was taken that time too. He just so happened to catch it on camera when he was filming his kid. And I would love to see that footage again. But that was at a symposium in Sacramento, a MUFON, not a symposium, but it was a MUFON at the hotel. It was like you pay tickets to come see Bud Hawkins, and it was in Sacramento at the DoubleTree back in 2005. I think that's when he was there. 2005 or 2000. I think it was 2005. And that right there was very, very interesting for me. I've read a lot of his books, but I'm not an expert in the field. We do have some people that focus just on abductions, and I think we have a couple people in MUFON that are trained hypnotherapists.
Right.
But I deal just with sighting, and I've through my cases, I've never have done an abduction case, but I've had people come to our local MUFON meetings, and I remember a husband and a wife were real distraught, and they telling me they set up security cameras, and they had a shotgun by the door, and was trying to they wanted it to stop, and they were coming here to try to get answers, and
it sort of sounds like the Whitley Strieber account.
Yeah, I wasn't probably the right person to talk to because I didn't have any answers for him. I figured, if this is really happening to you, good luck. But I didn't say that.
So Tony and Ben, do you have military experience?
Me?
Tony or Ben?
Tony, no. But I like a lot of guns.
You should have joined the Army then.
What did you just say? Did you say I like a lot of guns?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have an interesting story about abduction.
Go.
There's a case from the 1800s, I believe, where a gentleman was with a bunch of people, and he walked a little bit. I think it was snowing. In fact, it was snowing. He walked out to this field, and this is like late 1800s, early 1900s, and they heard him scream, and then they heard his voice disappearing above them. And they went out, and this is a documented case, not a UFO case, but a story that was in the papers. But his footprint stopped, like he was taken up off of the ground into the sky, and they could hear his voice for like 5 minutes screaming from up above them, and then he was never seen again.
Wow.
That's
what about
no explanation?
What's
your all's take? To me, when I do my UFO research, when it comes to abductions, we always go back to Barney and Betty Hill. I'll start with Jeremy. From what you know, is that based on all of the, the interviews, all the information? Do you believe that they actually experienced alien abduction?
I believe in their sincerity. I think, I've talked to Kathleen Mardlin, who's a relative of Betty, and I've read her books. One thing I find very interesting about that case is the star map that she drew when she was under hypnosis.
Right.
That's the first time you ever heard of Zeti Reptilii. And of course, you hear about that a lot now. I suppose that's where the Greys were from, or whoever abducted them. I found that very interesting because from what I've heard in most abduction cases, you don't get that much information. And I think that was one of the first documented, cases that actually everybody heard about back in the day. So it's actually a pretty historic case on abductions, and of course, they never changed their story. And there's been a lot of similarities to what they described that other people described.
What about Tony, Ben, your take on that particular story, the incident with Betty and Barney?
I've seen both sides of it. It's definitely very interesting. There's a talk about embellishment after the fact. There was the dress that had the material on it that was unusual. There were some strange things like the needle to the belly before there was a pregnancy test like that. But, I think
Scuffs on his shoes.
Yeah, I think something very strange happened. I just don't know how much was embellished over the years and grew from the legend. But initially, it seemed to be a strong case. But there's, if you go back in history, there were some of the founding fathers. There was a story that these guys in the 1800s in America had gotten in a boat on the river.
Right.
Saw a strange light, went down the river, and woke up or came to like an hour later, and were upriver. And so that's a pretty weird case from the early American settlements where they were floating down the river, lost time, and then all of a sudden found themselves way upriver.
Forget George Washington's little green men that he talked to.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of founding fathers. All believed in alien life and all talked about these weird stories. And, I mean, it's not just from the Betty and Barney Hill. It goes way back in time for as long as we've been here, and then it goes through all cultures. And it's like Bigfoot. It's in every culture in the world will say that there's something like that happens.
Cool.
Well, when it comes to like George Washington and the Little Green Men or whatever they were, I mean, it does go back in time where they've always had sort of visitations from little creatures or interesting beings. And even with the Betty and Barney Hill situation, I mean, there's always been, not always, I will say, I mean, I've had a laparoscopic surgery where they do that. They go in through your stomach and they blow it up and they do all these funky things. Well, and then there's also amniocentesis where they go in and they test the amniotic fluid. There's all these strange things that have come after the fact that we can sort of compare and say, it could have been something like that. But then why would she have been put through all of this crap under some kind of hypnotic type situation? I mean, what's the reasoning? What's the reasoning? I just don't understand. I don't know.
Help us understand, guys.
The problem with a lot of these stories are they're stories that were told after the fact, and so. Yeah, you do have confabulation over time. I mean, for the amniotic fluid test, that's something we discovered and have had for a while. I would think a civilization that's thousands of years ahead of us would have something like on Star Trek where they just turn on the tricorder and they can say, okay, she's not pregnant, she's had a baby, or we know what the fluid contains or something. But, for the story itself, it was a turning point in ufology, and the book that was written, An Interrupted Journey, kind of put things out there very specifically and started us down this path of abduction. Personally, what we try to do is we have cases and things that we're working on, but we're working on a famous case, and we've caught our own footage of something when we were in Socorro, New Mexico. So as much as we get a lot of really good reports, if we catch something ourselves, which we're trying to do on film, then, first of all, we know it's not a hoax because we caught it, and then we can analyze it and work it from a more modern perspective, because there's a lot of science that can be applied to older cases. There's several photos that we've analyzed, that like the Trent photos, that show something that a hoaxer would never have thought of. Right. So applying new technology to old photos is an interesting way to bring out more detail. But, with regards to ufology, I think we got to focus. I mean, how many times has Roswell been talked about? You really got to focus on newer things, get past all the CGI, the drones, and things like that. And the more data that an investigator can catch themselves, then the more credibility it has, just like when you get reports from pilots in the military and people that of incredible acuity see incredible things.
Yeah, Roswell, to me, that's when people, obviously when the novice people talk ufology, they tend to gravitate towards Roswell. One of my favorite stories, and I want to throw this out because I like to get feedback from the guys, is the Phoenix Lights. What was your all's take on something that apparently was like this huge object that literally is just moving across the sky? Not the flare part. We know that part is what it was. Those were flares later. But everyone, all the witnesses who saw this huge object just float over them. Even the governor came out and said he saw this thing, a boomerang type object that clearly is not something that we think is not man-made. What's your take on the Phoenix Light?
I think they saw something amazing. What it is exactly, I'm not sure, but from experience and from the photographs that Ben and I have seen of some old cases where these huge deltoid objects are connected to the bottom of this huge mothership. This mothership is probably maybe like a mile long, and there are these huge triangular deltoid crafts connected to the bottom of it, which seems like a method of deployment, and these things come down and do some kind of reconnaissance on the ground, and that could have been one of the objects that was spotted in that particular case. I know there's been a lot of controversy about it, and there's a film that came out that kind of over-sensationalized that particular case. They kind of made it more like a horror movie or something like this, and it's been and Lynn Kaipe is the one who's kind of like the authority on that particular case. Right. She's got the books the last 20 years, and she wasn't too excited about that movie. I don't want to put any words in her mouth, but she wasn't too excited about that. So yeah, in my opinion, I think they saw something amazing. What it was exactly, I don't know, but if it's what I think it was, it could have been one of these strange anomalous. And when I say strange and anomalous, I'm talking about something larger than a TR-3B. We're talking about something like a mile long on each axis of the craft.
Which clearly is not something with a military emblem on the ship.
Well, you say clearly, but probably not.
Okay.
Probably not.
All right. I'll humor you. Probably not for a mile long.
Now, we've seen, I know, it sounds awfully ridiculously large, but we've seen, I grew up around air bases. I grew up just down the road from Fort Knox. I grew up, I have a place down near Eglin Air Force Base. I worked on an air base. I'm telling you, there are some crazy, strange aircraft that are used, and they're used constantly, and people just don't really know what's in the sky. Now, when you have people that are constantly looking up and constantly trying to identify these secret aircraft, you know what? We've called it years and years before they've come out with them. It happens, but these aircraft do exist. And the thing that I worry about is not that there are UFOs. The problem that I come across is what actually are our military using that we don't know about yet? What is actually in the air with intelligent control from our American military or the Russian military, whatever the case may be? What is actually being controlled by humans? Beyond that, we don't really know, and that's the thing. The unidentified flying object is so murky to me.
Okay.
I've
Jeremy?
always felt that. I just like one sentence here, because Tony covered the same thing I was thinking. I think that why would the military want to fly their top secret craft over a huge populated city? I mean, unless there was something wrong and they had no choice to do it. But besides that, you kind of want to keep that something that spectacular a secret as long as you could,
Right.
And it wasn't just one day. I think that was March. When was that? I think it was March the 13th. They just had the reunion.
Right. There was
that happened in 1997.
97.
That's when it happened.
Yeah.
The book is called The Phoenix Lights, and if you're really interested, that would be a really good read. But there was other sightings before and after that big event. Right. One thing I do find very interesting about it is it was talked about, and it didn't get any media coverage till way later. And then it was like one day somebody flipped a switch, and it was on Fox News, it was on CNN, it was everywhere, just like it happened yesterday or last night. But it was already, I think it was like a month, or I don't know how old the story was. But that I found interesting about it was It's like somebody flipped a switch, and the media covered it all in one day.
Right.
And it's
let me go to I want to go to Ben. Ben, if you're at a conference and you're on stage and you get to tell a ufology story that you've been involved with that is in your heart of hearts is the real deal, what is that story?
That would easily be the Socorro case that we've been working on for 2 years. We wrote an article for the Journal. We were looking for the lost Socorro footage, which was something that I remembered seeing on the show Sightings back in the 90s. And when we were at the 2014 symposium where we met James Fox, and he started talking about his movie he was working on in Socorro, I thought he was going to show this footage. So we told him about it, and we'd been in communication. We went on a search for this footage. We found it. We wrote an article about how detailed the investigation was to find it. Then Ray Stanford, the original investigator on the site in 64 at NICAP, actually called Jan Harzan, the director of MUFON, and Jan said, you need to talk to Ben and Tony, and so we got in touch with Ray. And Ray has, announced on another radio show that, when he went back over some photos he took while on site, that the Socorro craft actually showed up in one of the photos. And we've seen the photo, and sure enough, there's a craft just like Lonnie Zamora described it. With it was an egg-shaped craft with a symbol on it, inverted C with 3 bars through it, and 4 landing gear. And in the photo that Ray blew up, somebody asked him about the dynamite shack that used to be out there in Mexico on Socorro, who owned it. So he blew up a picture to see the name on the dynamite shack, and sure enough, there were actually 5 objects in the sky behind the dynamite shack up in the air, and the closest was 0.6 miles away, and clearly shows the Socorro craft that just like Lonnie described it. And people realized there were 11 witnesses to that event, and that Lonnie went to his grave saying, that's the way it happened. And when his daughter asked him what the true story was, he pointed to Ray Stanford's book, Socorro Saucer in the Pentagon Pantry. He said that's the only guy that got it right. So we've been working with him. We have the original rock that had the metal in it that was kind of taken by Goddard and never given back. And we have melted crystals in the rock, which only happens under 1,000 degrees of heat. And there's a lot of things that have come out through other stories told by other military people that pretty much show, and this is what our talk is about in the symposium in August, that was a non-human event. It's hard to say if something's extraterrestrial or interdimensional or time travel or a time-traveling extra-dimensional and extraterrestrial. So we're pretty sure it wasn't made here. We couldn't tell you where it came from, but it's one of the most fascinating cases that Hynek. It's one of the cases that put Dr. Alan Hynek of Project Blue Book over the edge, where he started investigating UFOs himself and believed that was a real case. Hector Quintanilla, the head of Blue Book, said that was the one that stumped him. We have communications in the files of the President of the United States asking what's going on, the military being confused. Nobody could come up with an explanation for that. There was no craft, egg-shaped craft, that flew silent. We didn't use midgets for pilots because there were 2 humanoids that were the size of 10-year-old children next to this craft, witnessed by a police officer. So, to sum it up, that's the case that really had baffled. It's one of the 701 unknowns in Project Blue Book files, and there was never an explanation even to this day. And with new evidence of this craft in the background in the air, I think that there was truly a non-human event.
I have a question for you. What is the main characteristic that you look for in identifying a true alien experience, extraterrestrial experience? Any one of you. Tony, Jeremy, Ben, either one.
Who do you want to address first?
Tony. Go, Tony.
Go, Tony. Go with it.
Okay.
Go, Tony. Go, Tony.
Well, Ben and I, we've seen a lot of interesting stuff, and when someone shows us photographs, it's really a challenge because of CGI that's out today. blurry photos. We get cases all the time where, people are saying, "Oh, I just used my iPhone. I just shot all these photos at night, and it's just this blurry dot in the middle of the screen. You can't do anything with it. You can't, even if it was shot in, the highest resolution that an iPhone could possibly capture, you're just not going to get enough information out of it. So we like to focus on more like daylight shots, which is what we captured in Socorro when we were recently there. And we look for, things like Michael Faraday rings, methods of propulsion, self-illuminating, self-propelled objects, distortion, plasma, and all kinds of, scientifically, proven artifacts, if you will, of these types of objects. And it's also really challenging, too, because, like just the other day, I witnessed something that crossed the sky so incredibly fast, I couldn't even grab my phone and try to take a picture. And then I realized, as I'm watching this, even if I were to get my iPhone out and take a picture of this, it's not going to be worth anything to anybody, because I can't, videotape and show how fast it's moving. And, the iPhone is not even fast enough to bring up fast enough to push the button, You literally have to walk around with a high-quality 35-millimeter with a huge telephoto lens around your neck all day long, with the battery on, and that's just not going to happen. So that's what we look for. We look for, especially if it's a case where someone claims that something landed, we have equipment where we can measure the soil, if there's any electromagnetic readings or radiation or, any kind of trace evidence, physical evidence. That's what we like to look for, which is why I couldn't answer your abduction question, because that's not what we specialize in.
Right. Now, Tony, if you walk around with a huge lens around your chest, do people ask you, "Are you happy to see me?"
I would say yes.
That's what I thought.
Tripod.
Exactly. Tripod.
It happens.
Oh my
it
God.
happens. It's not conceit or arrogance if it's true. So let's keep that right. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. So actually, staying with Tiffany's question, same question. Go with Ben, if you remember Tiffany's question.
Yeah. The thing that we've noticed through working with other researchers and our investigations is the plasma discharge. There's a famous scientist that saw one of Ray's films where he captured an object. Dr. Lee Mirabeau wrote a breakthrough propulsion paper after seeing Ray's video, but basically showed an object, a large object. Every time it changed directions, it would shoot a plasma beam out in front of it, which would push the air out of the way and create a vacuum that would move through. And so you wouldn't get the sound barrier breaking, at 770 miles an hour. You wouldn't get that sound barrier blast because it would actually push the air out of the way. And this scientist went back, tested in the lab, and it worked. And then he figured out how to turn it into propulsion and actually told Ray that he helped, make one of the biggest breakthroughs in propulsion. And what happens is these craft ionize the air. They use plasma. So the real photographs and footage will have purples and greens and reds, which is the plasma discharge and magnetic venting that's occurring as these things travel in what we think to be compressed time, manipulating gravity. So if they're able to manipulate gravity, they can move, they can change time, they can change the whole field around them, they can appear very strange, they will put off all these colors. And so the Paul Benowitz pictures when these craft landed in the weapons storage area is a good case of that. Those are probably real UFOs that landed at a weapons storage base, and some of the footage you get will have these colors in it showing that they're using this exotic propulsion system. The nuts and bolts UFOs, I don't know, they could be maybe what we would call drones. It's like we fly to Mars with one big ship, and then we have another ship detached and lands on the surface. It's more nuts and bolts. So it could be these strange craft disgorging smaller craft that disgorge smaller craft, and they all have a little bit different type of propulsion system. So we look for the plasma discharge. The thing about taking daylight photos is you get a lot more data. You can kind of tell if it's venting magnetic waves, Faraday rings, and the spectrum of light around it. it's just at the sunset's probably the best time, and it's polarized, and you can get some really interesting things. Like Jeremy told me before, in Colorado, those things are flying around all the time. It's just a matter of having the right device, equipment, timing, and sometimes there seems to be a psychic connection that people know when they're around. That's how they capture them all the time when they photograph them. And then you have to figure out if some of these things are hoaxes and all. But I would say if they display colors, if they're creating waves around that show that they're disrupting the atmosphere, if they look like they're inside of a cloud, they're probably creating that cloud. So those are the real deal there.
Do you often use like the night vision goggles or anything like that?
Oh, yeah. There you
go. When I was in the Army and I was stationed in Egypt, out in the middle of, Boom. I'm not going to say the word, but anyway, out in the middle of nowhere where there was no light pollution at all, and I could see the Milky Way, and I would be on guard for 6 months straight, and I'd turn my night scope vision up, and I would see satellites, and I didn't see anything out there, and I was looking every night I was always looking up. I didn't see anything, but I went to California, and I've seen strange stuff that happens over a heavily populated area. That I think that they would, from my guesses, I think they fly around areas that are more populated than places that might be out in the middle of nowhere that you would think that's what they're doing. But I know that I-5 in California has tons of UFO reports all the time. It's that major highway that goes from south to north in California. There's always reported sightings of people seeing UFOs that seem to be traveling around that whole strip. Ben was talking about the psychic connection. There's some people, what you want to call contactees, would get an intuition feeling that they would be showing up and go outside with their camera, and it's almost like these objects would pose for the picture. My best guess on it is that somehow the real UFOs know that when you're looking at them, they know that you're looking at them. It's kind of like their radar system or whatever. I've heard through many cases that there might be a group of people that want to see it, and they would show up, but the person in the group that was scared, that had fear, didn't see it. It's like they have a switch that they could flip on and only allow people to see it if they want you to see them.
So now you're getting into like the CE5 group. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. So let's say like a good example. You're outside, you see something strange, you're watching it, and you're thinking, if you are who I think you are, could you verify and move to the left? You just think that in your mind to see if the object does it, especially when it's real close to you. Why not?
Right.
It just seems like they have the upper hand almost in everything. And
okay, well, that goes back. You're starting to talk about consciousness, though. You're talking about this meditation in sort of calling them in. If people don't know what CE5 is, it's the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is human-initiated contact. And this is something that has been going on for a long time. People such as Native Americans who take peyote or meditate or whatever the case may be, psychotropics or whatever, but also just people who have this insane conscious awareness and are trying to contact the powers that be, the Almighty, the gods, the extraterrestrials.
Hey, God.
Correct?
Listen,
right?
Well, yeah. It's some people out there that they've had it happen to them their whole lives, and they just seem to be like a UFO magnet, so to speak. But they do get the feeling that, hey, I think they're here, and they'd go outside and the objects would show up. And there wouldn't be anything like an abduction or anything. Right. It would be more of, hi, I'm happy to see you.
Affirmation.
Yeah, confirmation, constant confirmation. Even when you doubt yourself, constant confirmation. That's the best way I can. And I don't know how that all works. You would always think that these things come from very far away. But why would they pick certain people?
Right.
But some people that had one experience might have like a telepathic message that was given to them to say things like, please be calm, or, nothing bad's going to happen, and they would put that in the report. Most of the time people say they had sightings. They said they were thinking about it before they saw it, a few minutes or 5 minutes before, or they just had this feeling, look up, and there's this thing right above, and didn't know why they turned and looked right towards it. It was almost like it wanted me to see it. I hear that constantly. So yeah, you're right about the consciousness thing.
All right,
definitely something to it.
Hold this thought, and we'll have to chime in. Let me chime in real quick. Don't
Be careful, Kevin.
I'm fine. I've had a very good amount of alcohol so far, but I've got a caller who has questioning some of the information that is being said tonight. Jeremy, Ben, Tony, this caller is kind of with what he's hearing. Caller, speak and share your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on out there, but I don't think any of these guys know anything they're talking about.
Do we know?
I mean,
do you know?
And then
could you explain?
Jeremy Ray starts talking about UFO magnets. I've heard it said that he's a chick magnet, and I don't know if that's true.
Wow, a chick magnet, Jeremy? You didn't say.
Dwight Equitz in the house.
Is that Dwight? I'll tell you what, Dwight.
Is that Dwight?
Dwight.
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey. And does it take Kevin Hale to get drunk? Did I hear he's drinking a lot? Is that?
Oh my goodness.
That's why we don't hear from Kevin at all. He's too busy slamming them back.
It is 11 o'clock. That means it's 5 o'clock somewhere, guys.
There you go.
Oh, jeez.
Dwight,
hey guys, how you doing?
What's up, Dwight?
What's up? I'm just calling in to say hi. I want to know why you're having a party and I wasn't invited. That's what I'm wondering.
Hey. Dwight, you're always invited.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Hey,
Dwight, you got a date night tonight, right?
Yeah. In fact, I'm interrupting my date night right now. It's a big fancy middle-aged date. We are binge watching House of Cards.
Oh my gosh, you guys are all interrupting my date night, and it is 11:11. So I'm just going to do that shout out right now.
Dwight Equitz. Dwight,
hey.
While you're on here, real quick.
Yeah.
The guys have touched on how the fact that H2 and history, or Hangar 1, parted ways, if you will. You're well aware of that. What's your take on where this goes from here?
On my Facebook page, there's a conversation that one of the folks had with Jen Harzan, talking about it, and then asking a very direct question. They had an email conversation going back and forth, and so that was just a couple of weeks ago. I knew I was going to be talking to somebody on the air, and so somebody asked a question. I knew I was going to, so I checked. And right now it is still up in the air, but according to Jan, it is not a dead issue. And he's continuing to pursue other avenues. And they're kind of vague in the answers, but the fact of the matter is that although the connection with History Channel is right now a dead issue, Hangar 1, he said, and I think I don't have it in front of me, I'm not sitting on my computer right now, but he said something to the effect of that it may return in another form. So we're just in a waiting pattern right now. I certainly wouldn't put any money on it right now, and it's very sad, but I know it's still showing. You know, I get tweets from people all over the world. It's translate this tweet from Portuguese or French. It's been showing in France a lot. And so I know that it's still out there, and then I still get, people sending me messages, we want to see Hangar 1 Season 3, and I'm like, yeah, but dude, so do I.
Right.
But,
now, Let me ask a question real quick, and I won't keep you because I know Leslie is waiting on you. But for the record, would Leslie prefer to see Mr. Equitz, her significant other, on Friday nights on History, or Giorgio?
Oh, don't even go there.
That's mean, Kevin. Kevin, that is mean. You should be ashamed of yourself.
The hair is there.
The hair is there. But Dwight I tease Dwight. Dwight's Hollywood to me. He's my man, though. He's Hollywood out there, and I prefer Dwight. I prefer
Dwight. I love you, man, but the hair.
No,
the hair speaks for itself.
Come on.
I can answer that question in a very practical way.
Do it.
She wants to see me on Hangar 1 because that means I'm working on Hangar 1. It has nothing to do with who she's attracted to.
And for that matter, she wants to see Jeremy and Tony and Ben as well.
Exactly. So do I.
Okay.
I think I'm cool with Giorgio. I'm cool with Dave Childress and Eric. They do their thing.
Yeah, but we've had enough of them. They've had their almost decade. Okay, let's let them go away. Listen to these guys talk. Listen to Ben, Tony, and Jeremy. Listen to those guys talk. They sound so much more authentic than anything else out there, and they're talking about. I mean. Oh, gosh, just that story that Jeremy just told. I mean, that's what I was listening to. Going out in the middle of Egypt, and I know what he meant by whatever Egypt, and then looking at the sky and seeing the things, and it's like this is real. This is happening now.
Exactly.
I want to hear those stories.
That is it. We're talking now. Ancient.
You guys,
that's
you guys
past.
kill me because you know what? You guys are researchers, which I understand. But what about me, man? What about me? What about experiencers? What happens to us?
Oh, that's a good question, too.
Wow. It is a good question because you know what? We get pushed aside and swept under the carpet. That's what happens.
Actually, Tiffany, there's a guy by the name of, I brought him up today. His name's Dr. Joseph Burks, and he specializes with experiencers. And there is.
You know what that's called? That's called psychiatrist.
Oh well, he's not a psychiatrist. He was I call him Dr. Burrs because he was a medical doctor he was an emergency room physician in LA.
Exactly. That's who deals with us.
Well, I think that his passion he doesn't take it that way. So if you ever get a chance to meet him, you ought to read up some of his articles that he's written up about many experiencers and close encounters of the fifth kind that he's experienced by taking these people out into like Joshua Tree National Park. What he does is he gathers a bunch of experiencers, takes them out there to see if they can if any sightings would happen, and they've been very successful. So I never thought you guys experiencers were getting swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm telling you what, that's what.
How many of them actually get spoken to more than once?
Tiffany,
if the show ever
stop standing in front of the camera. Let these guys.
Holy moly!
Hey, if the show ever returns,
somebody else speak, please.
Yeah, there you go.
Somebody else take the mic.
Hey, if the show ever returns in a format, that is definitely, and I've talked to the guys about it, to Paul and Doug, and I think you mentioned to Jan as well. It's like that is one thing I'd really like that somebody does, that we go out and meet people face to face and talk about what did you see, when did you see it, and with the technology that we have as far as graphics and everything, wouldn't it be cool? I mean, son of a gun, Jeremy, you mentioned Joshua Tree. I could drive to Joshua Tree in 90 minutes. We go camping out there all the time. To be able to go out there and stand in the spot where someone was standing and recreate with graphics, this is what I saw coming up over that hill, to meet the people face to face. And as far as the experiencers, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why, let's talk about what's happening now.
I don't know if it is. I think that there's a whole research environment that takes the lead and just takes advantage of the situation sometimes. Not in a antagonistic way, but they do all this research and start putting out their own projects and their papers and their books and sort of forget about what the actual event has done to these people.
No, well, I want to meet. Yeah. I'm going to meet people like you face to face. That's what I want to do.
There you go.
I'm back in my living room now, and the television's staring me in the face. Yeah. I'm going to listen to this whole show later on the podcast side. Thanks, guys.
Dwight, give Leslie our love. Thanks for calling in.
Yes,
seriously.
I will.
Oh, wait.
What?
Before I walked into the other room to take the call, she said, "Tell Jeremy I said hi."
Oh.
Hi, Jeremy.
What a
big love.
She doesn't care about anybody else. Okay,
exactly.
Goodbye.
That's a bunch of shit.
All right, goodbye.
Man, you know what? Listen to this, Ben, Tony, Jeremy. Tiffany and I connected through ChristianMingle.com, and
oh shit!
No, not
my
really.
God, my husband will die after hearing that.
Well, okay, not really, Mr. Mac. We didn't.
Yeah, exactly, Mr. Mac.
Yeah. But through our online thing, we discovered we have this, like-minded, fixation with ufology and stuff, and the fact that we both live in Louisville, Kentucky. And tonight,
getting ready for the Derby. Woot woot.
Yeah, tonight.
Oh yeah.
Tonight's our first show, and when I told Tiffany that tonight's first show I was going to bring on the MUFON guys, we were like, "Oh hell yeah!" I mean, this is
awesome.
You guys. I mean, seriously, you guys have just killed it tonight. And here's what with the three of you and the five of us, what I found out tonight, and I think Tiffany will concur, is that this tonight is one of many, because there's so much to be said. There's so much, that we can talk about. There is so much out there that you guys investigate that is not, common knowledge or, out there for the, whoever, that you guys are doing the legwork on a lot of investigations that I think, me personally, would love to hear the story, hear the information on. So from me to you guys, please consider this tonight the first of several. This is like ongoing. It's been cool. There is the ufology thing, guilty pleasure. I can talk about this. It's ufology and religion. If I can do topics on my show, those are the first two that always come to mind. So, well, there you go.
And the next will be politics and sex. So we'd like to round that out with all of the offensive, all the offensive topics. We'd like to round that out there. Yes.
So, if the MUFON guys are up for talking about, anything that's on the internet that, entertains, a certain demographic male, you guys want to talk about that too. I think Tony will. Tony seems to be a little more free-spirited. That's how I'm gathering. But,
I didn't hear what you said about me now.
Much love, Tony. Much love. He's.
Hey man, I just say whatever comes to my mind. I don't have much of a filter.
And don't. Not here.
Join the club.
Join. Yes. Let me start with Jeremy. Jeremy, what's upcoming projects? Anything going on with you in the near future?
Well, there's another UFO show that Ben and Tony and I might be a part of. It'll be like a 2-hour special. It's not going to be related to Hangar 1. So that's up in the works right now. And then there's also what Dwight was talking about. They're still fishing around networks, same directors, to try to create another show that's like Hangar One and probably bring us all back. But the big thing that's going on right now is the MUFON Symposium that's going to be in Orlando. What's the dates, Ben? I'm sorry, I can't brain farting on the dates. But Dan and Tony are going to be giving a speech down there, and I'd recommend if anybody's in the Florida area that they come attend the MUFON International Symposium. So that's going to happen in a few months.
Very cool.
Really looking forward to that.
Cool.
Thanks,
Ben.
Jeremy. I'll send you $5.
Oh, yeah?
Ben, what's the word, Ben?
Yeah, we're still working on putting together our final determination on the Socorro event, which is really interesting. And, we get calls from various organizations and shows and stuff, but we want to make sure the next one hopefully is done with science and we don't, jump all over the place, because what it really comes down to is what you can prove and what's just a story. And so we really need to dig on some evidence using current scientific methods, magnetometers, gravitometers, and things that can measure multiple things at the same time. So we can tell the difference between capturing a real anomalous object and something that's man-made. One of the things we talked about before is there's a lot of black projects, and the things they show us now are 20 years old. So whatever they're saying is latest and the greatest is not the latest and the greatest. So a lot of times we confuse real military projects with UFOs, but if we start gathering other data, electromagnetic fields and Faraday rings and things like that, then we can know that we're investigating something scientifically that's truly anomalous.
There you go. Tony A., what up?
Hey, so Ben and I will be in Pennsylvania this June on Jennifer Stein's show. So anybody who's out her way in Pennsylvania, come out and see us. We're also we update our website, which is www.mufonva, that's victoralpha.com, and we'll be posting updates there, and check us out.
Very cool. Very cool. Tiffany, as we wind this down, what's your last word to the guys?
I just appreciate everything that you guys are doing. I think that it's a very important topic. It's something that's very near and dear to my heart as a military family, and being part of that, it's pretty interesting, to say the least. It's something that's always been in the back of my head growing up, and I think that it's very important. I think that everybody should pay attention. I think that there's going to be some really, really important news coming up very soon in this world, and everybody needs to have their hearing aids turned up because it's very pertinent to our day and time. So I hope to God that you guys get out there, you do your homework, you do your research, and you put it out there for the masses.
Yeah.
It's a worthy subject to investigate, definitely. Thank you, Tiffany.
It's worthy. It's interesting. I still don't think it's taken as serious as it needs to be. When people,
I think it is. I really do think it is. I think that yeah, absolutely. I think it is. I think that people have been informed to take it down a notch.
I'm talking mainstream media. When someone says
the Kardashians are mainstream media right now, which is total bullshit.
Kardashians tonight. I don't want to hear about the Kardashians.
Well,
I'm talking
I agree.
about that object in the sky. It's unidentified, so people should react like, what the fuck is that up there? It doesn't
keep looking up.
Have to
Keep
be
looking
alien.
up. Look up at the sky. Absolutely. Look up at the sky. Keep looking up. Pay attention.
There you go. You're right. Jeremy, Ben, Tony, this tonight was an important night for Tiffany and I as we kind of jump into the whole Friday night Shooting from the Lip / paranormal theme night. You guys came on and effing killed it. You guys know where you stand with our show. I will reach out to you guys as often as possible because I know there's always going to be good stories. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, really.
Thanks, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
It was a pleasure. And also, I'd like to give a big shout-out to Mr. Ben Moss. I want to wish you a happy birthday, sir.
Hey, real quick, Tiffany, go. Tiffany,
Yes.
go.
Happy birthday, everybody. I think there were 2 birthdays, right, coming up?
Yeah, my birthday's Sunday.
Tiffany,
Yeah.
sing
Better than Maryland.
it. Tiffany, let's hear the voice. Let's hear the voice,
Sexy
Tiffany.
song.
Let's see it.
What?
Sing it.
Drum roll, please. Drum roll.
Drum. I am not singing tonight. I apologize for that. It's not going to happen tonight. I apologize.
Once again, proving there's a pooper in every party.
Right, that would be me tonight. I apologize.
Sharon and Tony, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be in touch with you guys soon.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
All right. Much love.
Good night. Much love.
At no time were any animals or people hurt during this presentation of Shooting from the Lip.